What is the number one thing that you think members of the community should prioritize financially on the individual level, then as a group?
I think the two most important things we can do, and I know you said financially, but I'm gonna add one more. That would be education and economics. We don't get out of the situation we're in without a solid educational foundation, because you have to prepare the children and how to take leadership from those who presently have it. One of the reasons the black community struggles so much, we do not have an intergenerational transference of leadership. I didn't mention this to Queen Etta or Sister Tamaya at dinner last night, but what she's doing with her granddaughter by training her in this organization, that's intergenerational transfer of leadership. How often do you see that in the black community? Two different generations working together. You don't, because the black man's ego has been so stripped by the white man that whenever we get a chance to be in charge, we never want to share that power. That's why you got a million churches, a million community-based organizations. Why? Because when that 30-year-old pastor come out of seminary, he wants to give some lectures on Sunday. Pastors say, no, this is my church, I'll build it, you gotta wait your turn. He gets disgruntled, quits the church, starts his own. And guess what? When he turns 50 years old, he's gonna do the same thing to the next young brother coming out of seminary. We don't handle power well because we're not used to having it. Malcolm X was murdered over power. Dr. King was murdered over power. You go to Africa, Patrice Lumumba was murdered out over power. All these great black men killed by men in their inner circle because they wanted their position. We have to get out of a European hierarchical structure of power. I don't want one black man at the top, and I don't want to be the one black man at the top. I want a leadership team. We need team, man, woman, youth, and elder, team. So it makes no difference if you assassinate me, there's 15 others making this decision. What good was that? But because in our community it's always one person, cults of personality. The black community is cursed with cults of personality. It comes from our church tradition. Not that anything is wrong with church per se, but we're so used to the pastor being up front and everybody else following the pastor, we bring that same model to our political problems, our social problems, our economic problems. You can't use that structure for everything. So we got to give up the one man at the top, the lone savior, go to team. So education. If we don't teach the children who they are and what they're living for, we're done. Number two, economics. You know why Chinese people are so loyal to Chinese people? Because Chinese people can get opportunities from Chinese people. You know why European Jewish children are so loyal to Israel? They can get opportunities from Israel. If a black child in Miami Gardens needs a job, how many black people can give them one? Do you see that? When a homeless black mother with children need a place to stay, if the homeless shelter filled up, where does she go for food, clothing, and shelter? We don't take care of ourselves. And that's why our young people have a difficult time being proud to be African, because they're not seeing any material benefit. Don't get me wrong, you should love self because you are who you are. But it helps to know I got a community that has my back. And to that point, we have to build credit unions and then banks. You can start a bank with $250,000. You can start a credit union with, I think, $75,000. We need that. Why? Because everybody sitting here today has a business idea, an entrepreneurial exercise that they want to undertake. But can they get the funding? They're not going to get it from Wells Fargo. They're not going to get it from Chase Manhattan. So how are we going to fund everybody in here so they can be self-employed? That's the etiology of your Black Wall Street. You need a credit union, because guess what? It's going to be hard to convince all black people to buy black. It's going to be hard to convince black people to weaponize their money for the good of the community. But guess what they will do? They will put their money in a black bank, because that don't require no sacrifice. I can put it in there and I can take it out when I want. We need credit unions and we need banks. I wish our billionaire class cared a little bit more about the people, because Jay-Z has enough assets, he could start a bank. Puffy should have a bank. Oprah should have 10 banks. Tyler Perry should have a bank. Michael Jordan, even though we know he ain't thinking about it, he should have a bank. Tiger Woods, we know he ain't thinking about it, he should have a bank. Rihanna should have a bank. All these black billionaires, you ain't got to give us no handouts. See, that's the misconception we want to kill. We don't want nothing for free. Just give us the vehicle that we can put our dollars into so we can tap into them when we need them. Black America has to get to the credit unions because we're never going to get the funding. As long as white people who are gentrifying Miami can get funding from these white banks, we can't compete. We can't compete. We need black banks that's going to fund black people so we can push back against this. And I'll tell you this, one of the misgivings of the civil rights movement, not that they made a mistake, because they took the piece that they could handle at the time. We never had a fight for economic justice. Reparations is the closest to it, but even reparations isn't economic justice per se, because you're dealing with a crime that took place in the past. So that's restitution. You see that? That's restitution. What about the economic justice? What about all the years that the black community and black people have been underfunded? We haven't dealt with that enough. And I think the reason we haven't dealt with that enough is black people have been so focused on social privileges and social rights that we leave out the economics. We don't need any more rights. We don't need any more bills. We damn sure don't need no more statues. What we need is access to resources so we can take care of ourselves. We don't need no handouts. The government gives you handouts in place of financing you. They gave you welfare because they didn't want to finance you. They gave you food stamps because they didn't want to finance you. If they financed us, we would have never needed welfare. They know what they're doing. They'd rather give you a crumb. Because when you give a man a fish, he eat for the day. You teach him the fish, he'll eat forever. They love to keep us in poverty, and they love to keep us on welfare. We have to learn how to finance ourselves, build black banks, and build black credit unions.